Have you ever stared at your bank account balance and wondered why building wealth feels like pushing a boulder uphill while wearing roller skates? You're not alone in this financial frustration. There's actually a mathematical and psychological reason why accumulating your first $100,000 feels impossibly difficult, while the wealthy seem to add money to their accounts effortlessly. What if I told you that once you hit that magical six-figure mark, the next 100,000 becomes dramatically easier to achieve? It sounds too good to be true, but stick around because I'm about to reveal why this phenomenon happens and, more importantly, how you can use this knowledge to accelerate your own wealth building journey. My name is Nick, and today we're diving deep into one of the most counterintuitive aspects of personal finance. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why your current financial struggles are temporary and how the game completely changes once you reach certain milestones. Here's what we're going to cover. First, I'll break down the brutal mathematics that make early wealth accumulation so challenging. Then, we'll explore the psychological barriers that keep most people stuck in financial quicksand. Finally, I'll share practical strategies you can implement immediately to fast-track your way to that first $100,000. But before we jump in, let me paint you a picture that might sound familiar. You've probably heard successful investors and entrepreneurs say things like, the first 100,000 is the hardest, or once you have money, making more money becomes easy. These aren't just feel-good platitudes from people trying to sound wise on social media, but there's genuine science behind these statements. Think about it this way. If wealth accumulation were a video game, the first $100,000 would be like playing on expert mode with a broken controller, while the next 100,000 would be like switching to easy mode with cheat codes enabled. The rules of the game literally change as your financial position improves. Now, you might be thinking, Nick, that's great and all, but I'm still struggling to save my first $1,000, let alone 100,000. I hear you, and that's exactly why understanding this concept is so crucial. Once you grasp why the system works this way, you can start making strategic decisions that work with the mathematics of wealth building rather than against it. Let's start with the most obvious challenge. When you're starting from zero, every dollar you save comes directly from your own pocket. There's no magical money fairy contributing to your account while you sleep. No compound interest working overtime to multiply your efforts. It's just you, your income, and whatever discipline you can muster to spend less than you earn. This is what I call the manual labor phase of wealth building. You're essentially doing all the heavy lifting yourself, one paycheck at a time. It's like trying to fill a swimming pool with a garden hose while someone keeps pulling the plug. Progress feels painfully slow because, mathematically speaking, it is slow. Consider this scenario. Let's say you managed to save $5,000 and invested in something that returns 10% annually. After 1 year, you've earned a whopping $500. Don't get me wrong, $500 is nice, but it's hardly life-changing money. You could probably earn that much by working a few extra shifts at your job or selling some old furniture on Facebook Marketplace. When your returns are measured in hundreds rather than thousands, it's easy to think that investing isn't worth the effort. This is where many people make the critical mistake of giving up too early. They see these small returns and conclude that building wealth through investing is a waste of time. It's like judging the power of a rocket by watching it slowly roll down the launch pad before ignition. But here's where the story gets interesting. Fast forward to when that same person has accumulated $100,000. Now, that same 10% annual return generates $10,000. Suddenly, your investments are producing more money than many people earn at their full-time jobs. The mathematics have shifted dramatically in your favor. This is when wealth building stops feeling like punishment and starts feeling like magic. Your money begins working harder than you do. While you're sleeping, eating, or binge watching your favorite series, your investments are out there making money for you. It's like having a tireless employee who never asks for a raise, never calls in sick, and works around the clock to increase your net worth. The psychological impact of this shift cannot be overstated. When you can see your investments generating meaningful amounts of money, everything changes. You become more motivated to save because the rewards are tangible and significant. You start looking for ways to optimize your financial strategy because the potential payoffs are substantial. This creates what I call the acceleration effect. The more money you have invested, the more motivated you become to invest it even more. It's a positive feedback loop that compounds both mathematically and psychologically. Success breeds more success, and the wealthy understand this principle better than anyone. But let's address the elephant in the room. If this is all so straightforward, why isn't everyone wealthy? Why do so many people struggle to accumulate even modest amounts of savings? The answer lies in understanding the barriers that prevent most people from reaching that critical first milestone. The biggest obstacle isn't lack of knowledge or even lack of income, though those certainly play a role. The real culprit is something far more insidious: the psychology of delayed gratification in a culture that celebrates instant everything. We live in a world where you can get almost anything delivered to your door within hours, where entertainment is available on demand, and where social media provides instant validation for our thoughts and opinions. In this environment, the idea of sacrificing today's pleasures for tomorrow's financial security feels almost absurd. Why would you skip that expensive dinner when you can just put it on a credit card? Why would you drive an older, reliable car when you can finance something shiny and new? Why would you live in a modest apartment when you can stretch your budget for something more impressive? These seemingly small decisions compound over time, creating what I call the lifestyle trap. Each individual choice might seem insignificant, but collectively they create a pattern of spending that makes wealth accumulation nearly impossible. It's like trying to fill that swimming pool while someone keeps making the holes in the bottom bigger. The tragedy is that most people don't realize they're trapped until it's almost too late. They wake up at 40 or 50 years old, realize they have virtually nothing saved for retirement, and panic. Suddenly, they're trying to compress decades of wealth building into the few working years they have left. It's financial triage at its most desperate. This is where understanding the mathematics of wealth building becomes crucial. When you realize that your financial decisions in your 20s and 30s have exponentially more impact than the same decisions in your 40s and 50s, you start making different choices. Time becomes your most valuable asset, and you begin treating it with the respect it deserves. The good news is that it's never too late to change course, but the earlier you start, the easier the journey becomes. This brings us to the practical question. How do you actually bridge the gap between where you are now and that first $100,000? The answer isn't as complicated as the financial industry wants you to believe, but it does require a fundamental shift in how you think about money. Most people approach wealth building like they're trying to lose weight by doing 1,000 crunches once a year instead of taking a daily walk. They look for the magic bullet, the perfect investment, the secret strategy that will transform their finances overnight. But here's the uncomfortable truth. There is no shortcut. The path to that first $100,000 is paved with boring, unsexy decisions that compound over time. It's about consistently choosing the less exciting option day after day, month after month, until those small sacrifices snowball into something significant. Let me give you a reality check that might sting a little if you're currently living paycheck to paycheck, complaining about how impossible it is to save money while simultaneously having subscriptions to 17 different streaming services, eating takeout 4 times a week, and financing a car that costs more than some people's annual salary, then you're not really trying to build wealth. You're just hoping wealth will accidentally happen to you. That's like saying you want to run a marathon while refusing to exercise. It's magical thinking, and magical thinking doesn't pay the bills or fund your retirement. The first step is brutally honest self-assessment. Track every penny you spend for 1 month. Not just the big stuff, but everything. That morning coffee, the impulse purchases at the grocery store, the random apps you download and forget about, the convenience fees you pay because you can't be bothered to plan ahead. Most people are shocked when they see where their money actually goes versus where they think it goes. I had a friend who swore up and down that he couldn't afford to invest because he barely made ends meet. Then he tracked his spending and discovered he was spending over $300 a month on food delivery alone. $300. That's $3,600 a year that could have been invested instead of converted into late night regret and empty containers. Once you know where your money's going, you can start making strategic cuts. Notice I said strategic, not arbitrary. Cutting everything and living like a monk isn't sustainable for most people. You'll burn out, rebel against your own budget, and end up in a worse position than when you started. It's the financial equivalent of crash dieting. Instead, identify the spending that brings you genuine joy, and the spending that's just mindless habit. Keep the joy, eliminate the habit. Maybe you love going to concerts and that's worth every penny to you. Great, keep doing that. But maybe you're also paying for a gym membership you haven't used in 6 months and buying lunch every day because you can't be bothered to meal prep. Those are easy targets. The goal isn't to live like a pauper, it's to be intentional with your money. Every dollar should have a purpose, whether that purpose is immediate enjoyment, future security, or something in between. When you start thinking about money as a finite resource that should be allocated strategically rather than spent randomly, everything changes. But cutting expenses is only half the equation. The other half is increasing your income, and this is where most people get stuck in scarcity thinking. They assume their current job is their only source of income, and that their current salary is set in stone. This might have been true 50 years ago, but we live in the most opportunity-rich environment in human history. You literally have access to a global marketplace through the device you're probably watching this video on. You can start a business, freelance your skills, create content, buy and sell products, or offer services to people anywhere in the world. The barriers to entry for generating additional income have never been lower. Now, I'm not saying it's easy. Building a side income takes time, effort, and persistence. But it's absolutely possible if you're willing to exchange short-term comfort for long-term financial freedom. The question is whether you're more committed to your Netflix schedule or your financial future. Here's something most financial advisors won't tell you because it doesn't involve them selling you products. The fastest way to your first $100,000 isn't through complex investment strategies or exotic financial instruments. It's through maximizing the gap between what you earn and what you spend, then investing that difference in boring, reliable assets. I know, boring doesn't sell courses or get clicks on social media. Everyone wants to hear about the cryptocurrency that's going to make them rich or the stock pick that will double their money. But the math is ruthlessly simple. If you can save and invest $2,000 per month in assets that return 8% annually, you'll have your first $100,000 in less than 4 years. The challenge isn't the math, it's the discipline. $2,000 a month sounds like a lot when you're used to spending everything you earn, but break it down. That's about $67 a day. For many people, that's less than they spend on coffee, lunch, and random impulse purchases. It's not about earning more money, it's about keeping more of the money you already earn. This is where the rubber meets the road. You can watch every financial education video on the internet, read every book about building wealth, and attend every seminar about investing, but none of it matters if you don't actually change your behavior. Knowledge without action is just expensive entertainment. The people who successfully build wealth aren't necessarily the smartest or the highest earners. They're the ones who consistently make the boring, rational choice when everyone around them is making the exciting, irrational choice. They're the ones who drive reliable used cars while their friends lease luxury vehicles. They're the ones who live in modest homes while their peers stretch their budgets for impressive addresses. This isn't about living a joyless existence or never having fun. It's about understanding that every financial decision is a trade-off between present consumption and future freedom. The wealthy understand this trade-off and make conscious choices about when to spend and when to save. The poor and middle class either don't understand the trade-off or consistently choose immediate gratification over long-term benefit. But here's what happens once you do reach that first $100,000. Suddenly, the game changes completely. Your money starts working almost as hard as you do. Those boring, reliable investments begin generating returns that actually matter. The compound interest that seemed insignificant when you had $5,000 invested becomes a powerful force when you have $100,000 working for you. More importantly, you develop what I call wealth momentum. You've proven to yourself that you can accumulate significant money, which gives you confidence to take bigger risks and pursue bigger opportunities. You have a financial cushion that allows you to be more strategic about your career choices, more selective about the projects you take on, and more opportunistic when good investments present themselves. This is when wealthy people start saying things like money makes money and the rich get richer. It's not some conspiracy or unfair advantage. It's simply the mathematical reality of compound growth combined with increased opportunities that come with having capital to deploy. The second $100,000 doesn't just come faster because of compound interest, though that's certainly part of it. It comes faster because you've developed better financial habits, you're more motivated by the visible progress, and you have more options for growing your wealth. You're no longer limited to just saving money from your job. You can invest in opportunities that weren't available when you had limited capital. This is when you start understanding why wealthy people seem to have access to opportunities that regular folks never hear about. It's not because there's some secret rich person newsletter they all subscribe to. It's because when you have substantial savings, you can actually take advantage of opportunities when they arise. Your broke friend calls you up and says, Hey, I found this amazing duplex that's selling for way below market value, but I need to close in 2 weeks and put down 20%. When you're living paycheck to paycheck, that conversation ends with, sounds great, good luck with that. When you have $100,000 saved, that conversation might end with you owning a cash flowing rental property. Or maybe your company offers stock options that require you to hold them for 5 years before you can sell. If you're barely scraping by, you can't afford to tie up money for 5 years no matter how good the opportunity looks. But when you have substantial savings, you can afford to take calculated risks with longer time horizons. This is what rich people mean when they talk about opportunity cost. Poor people think opportunity cost means choosing between buying groceries and paying rent. Rich people think opportunity cost means choosing between a guaranteed 8% return and a potentially lucrative business investment. It's a completely different conversation. The psychological shift that happens at this stage is just as important as the mathematical one. Remember when $500 felt like a meaningful amount of money? Now, your investments might fluctuate by that much in a single day, and you barely notice. You've developed what investors call risk tolerance, which is just a fancy way of saying you can handle seeing your account balance go up and down without panicking and making stupid decisions. This emotional stability is crucial because it allows you to think long-term instead of reacting to short-term market movements. When the stock market has a bad week and your portfolio drops $5,000, you don't lose sleep and consider selling everything. You understand that this is just noise in the grand scheme of your wealth building journey. Meanwhile, someone with $5,000 total invested might see their account drop by $250 and completely freak out, convinced they're destined for financial ruin. They sell at the worst possible time, locking in their losses and missing the inevitable recovery. It's like getting scared and jumping off a roller coaster halfway through the ride. But let's talk about something that most financial gurus conveniently ignore: the social pressure you'll face when you start getting serious about building wealth. Your friends and family, probably with the best of intentions, will think you've lost your mind. They'll watch you order water instead of wine at dinner, drive your paid-off car instead of financing something newer, and choose a quiet night in over expensive weekend trips. They'll start making comments like, "You can't take it with you," or "You're missing out on life," or my personal favorite, "Money isn't everything." Here's the thing about people who say money isn't everything: they usually don't have any. It's easy to dismiss the importance of money when you've never experienced the freedom and security that comes with having it. It's like someone who's never learned to read telling you that books aren't important. The reality is that money might not be everything, but lack of money affects everything. It affects where you live, what you eat, how you spend your time, the stress levels in your relationships, and the options available to your children. Pretending otherwise is just willful ignorance dressed up as wisdom. You'll need to develop thick skin during this phase because the people closest to you might become your biggest obstacles. They're not trying to sabotage you maliciously. They're just uncomfortable with the fact that you're changing the rules of the game you've all been playing together. Your discipline makes their lack of discipline more obvious, and nobody likes that mirror held up to their face. This is where having a clear vision of your financial goals becomes absolutely critical. When everyone around you thinks you're being too extreme or missing out on fun, you need to remember why you're making these sacrifices. Are you building wealth so you can retire early and travel the world? So you can start a business without worrying about steady income? So you can provide better opportunities for your kids so you never have to worry about money again? Whatever your reason, it needs to be compelling enough to sustain you through the inevitable moments of doubt and social pressure. Because trust me, those moments will come. There will be times when you're tempted to give up, to go back to spending everything you earn, to live like everyone else around you. But here's what I want you to remember during those moments of weakness. Every single person who has successfully built substantial wealth has gone through exactly what you're going through right now. The struggle you're feeling isn't unique to you. It's a necessary part of the process. It's like the burn you feel when working out. It's not pleasant, but it's a sign that something positive is happening. The difference between people who build wealth and people who don't isn't intelligence, luck, or even income level. It's the willingness to endure temporary discomfort for long-term benefit. It's the ability to delay gratification when everyone around you is indulging immediately. It's the discipline to make boring, rational decisions consistently over time. And here's the beautiful irony of the whole thing. Once you reach that first $100,000, the habits that got you there become so ingrained that maintaining them feels natural. You're not constantly fighting the urge to overspend because you've retrained your brain to find satisfaction in watching your net worth grow rather than in accumulating stuff. The second 100,000 doesn't just come faster because of compound interest and better opportunities. It comes faster because you've become a different person. Someone who thinks strategically about money instead of emotionally. Someone who makes decisions based on long-term consequences instead of short-term impulses. So if you're currently staring at a bank balance that's smaller than you'd like, remember this. Your current financial position is not permanent. The struggle you're feeling right now is temporary. Every successful investor, every wealthy entrepreneur, every financially free person started exactly where you are right now, with more dreams than dollars and more hope than evidence. The only difference between them and the people who never build wealth is that they started. They took the first step, then the second, then the third. Even when progress felt impossibly slow, they understood that the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. But more importantly, they understood that you actually have to take that step. Your first $100,000 is waiting for you. It won't be easy, it won't be quick, and it definitely won't be exciting every day. But it will be worth it. And once you get there, you'll understand why everyone who's made the journey says the same thing. The first 100,000 is the hardest, but everything after that gets progressively easier. The question isn't whether you can do it, the question is whether you will. The mathematics are in your favor, the opportunities are available, and the knowledge is freely accessible. All that's left is the decision to start and the discipline to continue. Your future self is counting on the decisions you make today. Don't let them down.